The AFL Gather-Round is an event that in one round each year, a state from around Australia hosts a festival of football in that state only. So far, only South Australia has hosted Gather-Round, with other states pushing to get a Gather-Round played in their respective states in a few years' time. So following up from a video that I made 2 years ago and also a year ago to the day, you guys on Instagram voted for which state I should cover for an AFL Gather-Round concept, and this year it is my home state, Tasmania, that you guys voted for. So I'll be going through what states will be hosting AFL Gather-Round in Tasmania, what games will get played, and who your team would be versing if an AFL Gather-Round was held here in my home state, Tasmania. Let's get started. As usual, I'm kicking off with the stadiums that are in line to host an AFL Gather-Round game if it was held here, but also keeping in mind that only an average of 3 venues each year are held at Gather-Round since 2023. But with Tasmania, I'll tell you what, there are a lot of good venues that AFL Gather-Round games could be held here, with majority probably not going under that 6,000, 8,000 people mark. And with these stadiums that are around Tasmania, with a lot of good ones that there are, I've decided on these ones that I think are a definite lock for an AFL Gather-Round if it ever came to Tasmania. It's a pretty short list, but I guess as well, you've got reasons for UTAS Ninja Stadium and the hopeful Macquarie Point Stadium as well if it gets built. There are a couple of troubles right now with that stadium, but obviously they'll be Tasmania's major venues if they're all built and I guess redeveloped as well. Dial Park has been through a lot of redevelopments recently with new seats coming in. The stadium's going to go above about 8,000 people, which is going to be absolutely amazing. And they're going to be treating Dial Park like a bit of a Barossa Valley or Bross Park, sorry. And I guess if you're going to have a Gather-Round in Tasmania, you do need a stadium to support the Northwest as well, being a massive footballing part of Tasmania. And I guess the other venue on there was North Hobart Oval. North Hobart has had a lot of AFL or even VFL games played there, with Fitzroy playing most of their home, I wouldn't say most of their home games, but most of Tasmanian games when they were in the AFL, they did play at North Hobart Oval, so let's relive some memories there. And now on to the maybes with venues that are a sneaky chance of making it into an AFL Tasmania Gather-Round. How good it would have been to have Queenstown on that list. Actually, you know what? There you go, the Gravel 2, maybe, probably not. I don't reckon they'd play a Gather-Round game in Queenstown. But there you go, with the venues done, let's have a look at the matchups and the fixture for this Gather-Round that I've come up with. So kicking things off Thursday night in Launceston at 7:30 PM, I've gone with two teams that have actually played a couple times in Tasmania, and I feel like would be a good way to start off a Tasmania-based AFL Gather-Round, and this being Hawthorn and Carlton. You know, I feel like Hawthorn kicking off a Gather-Round here would be, I guess, fitting, being, I guess, Tasmania's main team for a lot of years. Like Hawthorn, they were literally our only Tasmania team for a fair bit of time. We had St Kilda and North Melbourne, but Hawthorn never been bigger. And for Carlton, they came down here a couple of years ago, I think it was 2019, and for a Launceston-based, I guess, crowd, 16,000 people showed up to this round. I think it was round 5 or something in 2019. They showed up to this massive game between the Hawks and the Blues, and I feel like if Launceston's getting a massive redevelopment for UTAS Stadium, two very big growing fan bases as well, mind you, I think Hawthorn and Carlton would be a perfect start for a Tasmanian AFL Gather-Round. And hopefully the Blues don't start with a 56 point loss. Now to Friday, they're making a return the afternoon games at 5 PM at Dial Park in Penguin. I've gone with the Giants to take on the Western Bulldogs. Now, these two clubs don't really have a big Tasmanian fan base, sorry Bev, but yeah. But these two still share that small finals rivalry that they had a couple years ago when they were making finals year after year and always seem to be versing each other as well. And I guess these two have always seemed to be playing each other at that Mars Stadium in Ballarat. And it's not the biggest stadium by any means, about 10,000 people, so why not match them up together at Dial Park in Penguin, which will probably be around the same capacity and with them temporary seats as well. So I'm going to chuck the Doggies and the Giants to verse each other at Dial Park in Penguin. And yes, there is a town in Tasmania called Penguin. Write that down. Friday night on the big stage in our first game in the capital city, a 7:50 Friday night game I landed on at Macquarie Point Stadium between Richmond and Brisbane. I reckon by the time Gather-Round ever got to Tassie, I reckon these two will definitely be top 8 contending sides. Brisbane still, Richmond probably will be climbing through the ranks at this stage. And as well, Richmond having one of the biggest membership counts in the AFL helps. Brisbane, well, still growing, I guess. And also, it's easier to get a flight from Brisbane to Hobart than it is to go from Brisbane to Launceston. So I guess for the Queenslanders coming to visit an AFL gathering in Tasmania, easier to get to Hobart from Brisbane. And yeah, I just think Brisbane and Richmond will be a good matchup for a Friday night blockbuster for gathering at Macquarie Point Stadium. So Saturday has 3 games across 3 venues as well, and this one's going to kick off at 12:40 PM at North Hobart Oval, and I've gone with a bit of an interesting pick between the Sydney Swans and St Kilda to kick off Saturday games. I don't know, just something kind of clicked in my mind that Sydney and St Kilda would be 2 decent picks for a game at North Hobart Oval. You know, North Hobart Oval, it's not the biggest venue by any means. It used to hold about 18,000 people, but now down to about 10. But I reckon old North Hobart Oval, along with Dole Park as well, will probably get those temporary stands that we see at Barossa Park and saw at, what was that one in Mount Gambier called? Mount Barkers. If I've said Mount Gambier, I apologise. But old North Hobart Oval, and along with Dole Park as well, I reckon, we'll get those temporary stands. Maybe in front of the bar would be a good idea for North Hobart Oval. And I guess get that 18,000 capacity seat back and actually have a good gathering game played here. St Kilda and Sydney, they're 2, I guess, relatively decent fan-based teams. Or St Kilda not so much, but I guess you've always got that very not exciting game for a gather round on a Saturday, so I landed on St Kilda and Sydney. Sorry to the 2 clubs, but I'm going to put them 12:40 at North Hobart Oval on a Saturday. On to a 4 PM start with this one, still in Hobart, and this one's going to be at Ninja Stadium for its first gathering game, and this one I've decided to put Melbourne and Port Adelaide against each other. I wasn't really sure who would be a good matchup for Melbourne or Port Adelaide, so this one, it was just kind of put together, I won't lie. It was one of those games where you just will see at gather round. So, I'm not going to lie, that's pretty much all I've got. Melbourne and Port Adelaide, Saturday, 4 PM. And the primetime Saturday night game at 7:25 PM at Macquarie Point Stadium. All Saturday games in Hobart, pretty simple. I've given it to Collingwood and North Melbourne to battle at Macquarie Point Stadium. Now, at first glance, this doesn't look like a very exciting matchup at all, but if you really think about it, North Melbourne, they used to be a Tasmanian club from 2012 to 2025. If you guys don't know, North Melbourne aren't going to proceed with their contract at Bellerive Oval after this year in 2025, so they'll probably still have that fan base around from after they left Tasmania, and Collingwood as well. Why not have Collingwood in the primetime slot? They're literally the biggest club in Australia. Is that right? Biggest club in Australia? I think it is right. But yeah, why not draw a big crowd into Macquarie Point Stadium for a Saturday night game? It's a roof stadium. And look, it's a bit of an extra time because obviously the game before started at 4 PM. This one at 7:25 PM. Like, you might as well chuck a concert, a pre-game concert for Collingwood and North Melbourne, or after. Maybe chuck it after. I reckon the concert will be good after Collingwood and North Melbourne. But either way, I just feel like Collingwood and North Melbourne, a good Tasmanian gathering clash between these two would be amazing. So Collingwood and North Melbourne, 7:25 at Macquarie Point Stadium. And now on to the Sunday games. And we're going to start this one, where are we at? 1 PM at Penguin at Dole Park. It's a game that, it wasn't an easy pick. This one wasn't an easy pick by all means, but I ended up with Gold Coast and Adelaide. And coincidentally, coming off these two playing each other and Adelaide getting absolutely robbed. But yeah, the Crows and the Suns, they've drawn the short straw in this AFL gathering concept. It's just the fact that it was either the showdown happens in this gathering with other games, I guess, scheduled, and Melbourne and Gold Coast play each other. Like, they're not the greatest matchups. This one's no better. But I just thought chucking in Penguin in Northwest, it'd just be a much easier idea with all games being played in Hobart. You've got your games in Launceston with a couple more to come, actually. And, you know, I think this one would just be fair enough. The game that doesn't draw that many, and it's at a reasonable venue for this type of situation. It's more like it's a Mount Barker. This one's literally like a Mount Barker, Dole Park, and a Barossa Valley. So I think Adelaide and Gold Coast would be a good matchup for this Tasmanian gathering concept. I really just didn't have any ideas what to do with the SA clubs because they're the only ones that have actually held gather-rounds so far, and Gold Coast, you just can't put them anywhere. So Adelaide and Gold Coast, 1 PM at Dole Park in Penguin. Following up after that game, in Launceston at 4:30 PM, I have Geelong and Fremantle. Geelong and Fremantle would actually be one of the most gather-round, I guess, matchups of all time. I feel like it just makes sense that Geelong and Freo would have a game together, and I just feel like it'd be a good matchup, these two. Like, Freo haven't been too lucky when it comes to gather-round draws. Like, they've always been playing at those secondary, lower-based venues, so I thought them and Geelong would be a good one. Geelong have played down in Tassie a couple of times, but Morley down in that Hobart region down south. So I reckon giving them a chance to play in Launceston, not just a pre-season game against Hawthorn, but actually play in Launceston Essendon would be an idea for a gather round in Tasmania for these two, but I don't really have too much to add to that, I guess. I really don't have anything else to say. Geelong have played West Coast before, but give it another chance. Give it a chance to play Freo. And wrapping up the AFL gather round at 7:40 PM, also at UTAS Stadium. It's a bit of a weird time slot, 7:40 PM, but hey, if South Australia can do it, then so can Tasmania. But to wrap it up, if you've been following along, you'd know who these two are. West Coast and Essendon to finish it off. Two very passionate sets of fans, and honestly, I reckon they've got a lot in Tasmania. Like, I think Hawthorn, North Melbourne have the most in Tasmania, but I think Essendon would be a close third, followed by, well, yes, West Coast. Richmond and St Kilda wouldn't be too far behind, but yeah, I reckon these two, West Coast and Essendon, would be a good finish to an AFL gather round. Yeah, I guess here as well, you mostly got Victorian club fan bases, but at least you're mixing around with West Coast. I think they've got the second or third most amount of memberships in the AFL, and then Essendon, they're up there about top 5, so why not bring a Victorian club, a massive Victorian club, mind you, and the biggest WA club, and the one with the second most, I'm pretty sure it's second most amount of members in the AFL. But yeah, I reckon a nice game, very passionate fans, and West Coast and Essendon, I feel like it's a good way to finish off gather round. I reckon West Coast and Essendon. And with that, that is the last of the fixtures. So here is what I've come up with for an AFL Tasmanian gather round concept for a fixture. The 9 games here. So obviously starting gather round on that Thursday night with the Hawks and Carlton. Friday afternoon, we'll go to Dial Park to see the Giants and the Bulldogs. And then at Macquarie Point Stadium, we have Brisbane and the Tigers, or the Tigers and Brisbane, I should say. Saturday, we kick things off at North Hobart Oval with St Kilda and Sydney. And then at 4 PM at Ninja Stadium, we have Melbourne and Port Adelaide together, the one and only game at Ninja. And then 7:25 back to Macquarie Point Stadium for the primetime Collingwood and North Melbourne game. To the Sunday games at Penguin at 1 PM, we had Gold Coast and Adelaide. Then following after that in Launceston, 4:30 PM, Geelong and Fremantle. And then as just mentioned, West Coast and Essendon to finish it off. Now, I was going to do what each team would probably wear for a Tasmanian gather round, but unfortunately, just with the amount of jerseys that each team has now, and obviously changing it year after year, some do make special gather round themed jerseys for, well, I've got some for 2025, but I just don't know when Tasmania, if it even does, if Tasmania ever does hold a gather round, if they would even make jerseys for that. So we'll leave that one blank for now, and maybe in a further video, who knows. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. If you enjoyed today's video and would like to see more gather round concepts in the future, if you'd like to see one next year, comment down below what state you'd like me to do next, and the one with the most likes will be the AFL Australian gather round concept. Why'd I say Australian? The AFL gather round concept that I'll be doing next. And yeah, guys, if you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. This video took ages to make and lots of thought put into it as well, so yeah, it'd be muchly appreciated. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See yous.